March 1st, I call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. I'm your Dave Peterson for tonight, so if I forget something or make a mistake, please bear with me. And Ken and Heather are here to keep me online. At this time, I ask everybody to stand, and I believe we have an invocation by Tim Sackett.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. You know, I never intend to be long-winded when I get this opportunity. So when I stand up here, so I always appreciate the invitation, and I always enjoy the minutes that I'm giving up here. And I'm reminded by a phrase one time. Barry Goldwater once said that Hubert Humphrey has been clocked at 247 words per minute with gusts up to 340. So as to not be a Hubert Humphrey, here's my offering today. So we're here. Welcome to March. This is the month for maple sap and mud. Yeah, right? Bill was just saying, we love this great weather. And I said, yeah, it's great to have this great warm weather and everything's melting. So I think he likes mud. This is the month for it. So, and all you maple sappers, get after it. And we're also ready. I think we're all ready for the appearance of green. Everything's going to be green, including our milkshakes. But also this month, starting tomorrow, will be a time of remembrance, sacrifice, and repentance. So I ask that you please make room for the Lord in your life throughout this month, starting tomorrow up until Easter. Today is also an anniversary, a special anniversary. This is the day back in 1961, John F. Kennedy established the Peace Corps. I found that interesting that today's we know that he was enthusiastic about sacrifice and duty. And one of his reasonings for the Peace Corps, he said this, John F. Kennedy, if a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. So from here unto Easter, remember that Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice for us, the poor. Poor in spirit, poor in the needs that Jesus is our only supplier for all. And the Bible says that all of this was done. What he did was that he made his sacrifice. It says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So if our days are dark, or if our future is uncertain, if we need a lot of intense focus on where we're at and where we want to be, just remember that beyond that cross, Jesus saw joy beyond the cross, and he endured the shame. So let's pray. Lord God in heaven, for any and all of us who are uncertain about our days today, uncertain about our days in the future, as we look at world events and we keep praying for people, especially in the Ukraine and Russia and Eastern Europe, as we continue to see things that look dark, ominous, and pretty difficult to understand. Help us to always be reminded that these kind of things have happened in the world, throughout history. And it even happened to you. The people who did not trust you, the people who did not like you, the people who wanted you removed and out of their way, made a hideous plot. And you knew that there was joy beyond this darkness. But as you endured the darkness, as you walked through the valley of the shadow of death, you knew that your Father was with you. And I pray that we would be reminded of the same. No matter what we walk through, our Father is with us. Give these people here in this building, in this meeting today, a camaraderie of what it means to be Americans, to make decisions, to better ourselves, to lift people up the best that we can, the best that we knew how. And help us to remember that our former leaders, like John Kennedy, had an idea that we who have much have a lot to offer to those who don't. And that's a good reminder for today. So we give you thanks for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in pledge allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Cindy, you want to go ahead with roll call?
Ed Schachner,
Present.
Sean Anderson. He's coming, okay. Bob Long,
Present.
Kathy Leaf,
Present.
Kara Cook,
Present.
Tim Hall,
Present.
Paul Burning,
Present.
Rick Otino,
Present.
Bob Fiedler,
Present.
Dave Osnes,
Present.
Scott Counter,
Present.
Dan Hansen,
Here.
Scotty Yard,
Present.
Greg Telejohn,
Present.
David Peterson,
Present.
Paulette Anderson,
Present.
Judy Achterhoff,
In attendance.
and District 18 is vacant, and Bill Peavy.
Present. At this time, we'll go to public comment, and I have one card, so Steve Hermanson.
Is this on? It's on. Thank you, Board Chair, Supervisors. It's good to see you guys again. It's been a while. I'm here to comment on your upcoming deliberations on this bond referendum that you're going to go for. And I'm telling, my opinion is, and I've spoken with the other supervisors that I've served with here, and we're very concerned about what's trying to come, what you're trying to bring forward. And to give you kind of something to think about, I thought about, I wonder how many supervisors here would right now jump out there and decide to take on a home building loan. Would you feel comfortable doing it at this time of with the environment that we've got? I pulled up the consumer price index that's going on, and just since we've got our raise, I was really happy to see that for my Social Security check. But since that month, we've seen a 6.9, 7.6, 7.8, and now the last month has been 8.2% increase in consumer price in pricing. People on fixed incomes might find that a little alarming. The other thing I found rather interesting, and I passed this on to my supervisor, Rick Otino, on what I paid for taxes. Since it was so nice on the county website, it tells you and it's public information. I paid for my house in taxes for the last 10 years came to $39,437. I thought, wow, for 10 years. My taxes on that was almost half the cost of what I paid for the house when it was brand new. And I'm going, so I guess I'm viewing it now, I'm paying for that house, well, once for the principal, second time for the interest, and now I'm working on 3 times just for the taxes. I think what's going on, given the environment that's going on in this world right now, this is not the time to be borrowing any money. And if anything, I think what you should show the district and show the people, show us how you're getting out of debt, not taking on more. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not very good with names, but Kinshi Smoot? Okay.
My name is Christy Smith. I'm the Executive Director at St. Croix Valley Habitat for Humanity. Just here to talk to you a little bit about affordable housing in St. Croix County. As you all know, it's been an amazing market if you're a seller. If you're a buyer for someone who has less means than others, as we talked about earlier, that makes it a little bit tough. 1 in 10 households here spends more than half of their income on housing. And we think here, workforce housing is the supply of affordable housing that meets the needs of the workforce in our community. A home is where a job goes to sleep at night. A worker needs to make at least $17.89 an hour to afford a fair market rent for a two-bedroom home in our county, and housing affordability is down 17.5% since 2020. So, what does that mean for us here in St. Croix County? That means in Hudson, there's been a 9% increase in the price of median sales of homes in the last year. And you think that's not too bad because it's Hudson, and we know that a lot of people have left the Twin Cities, come out here to our great town for more space, more opportunities for learning, better education opportunities, and those kinds of things. So maybe 9% isn't too bad for an increase in a year. But let's look at Hammond, which is also part of our great county, where they see their price from 2021, an average sales price was $188,500, and in 2022 it was $296,500. That's an increase of 57.3% in 1 year for housing in Hammond. So I'm here to talk to you about affordable housing, and I think there's a need for us to look at what does that mean in our county, and how can we come together as a business community to change those numbers and to make more affordable housing available both in the rental market and in the long-term housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Rubin.
Good afternoon. Pastor Tim stole a little bit of my thunder. March 1st, 1961, Peace Corps. I'll take you back 10 years ago, March 1, 2012. Happy anniversary. On the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, by an overwhelming vote, the representatives approved the exemption to the Wild and Scenic River Act that started the 5-year process of getting the river crossing in place, and I just wanted everybody to be mindful of that. 10 years ago, today, the vote was taken. 3 other topics. Back in August, the governor's office announced the Main Street Bounce Back Grant Program, $10,000 grants to businesses that occupied previously vacant space. We've had a pretty good run in St. Croix County. As of the last Regional Business Fund Board meeting, which was 3 weeks ago, 99 businesses in the county had received those $10,000 grants. That's approaching $1 million. We're not done. The program lasts until June 30th this year. By word of mouth, by newsletter, by work through the chambers, towns, villages, cities, and so on, we've been able to spread that word, and I would encourage the county to help spread that word that there are $10,000 grants for those small businesses. Just about a week ago, we celebrated Small Business of the Year. For 2021, we honored 4 exceptional businesses and individuals. Emerging Business of the Year went to Astor Beverage in New Richmond. Small Business of the Year, Alms Creative here in Hudson. Business of the Year, Indu in the town of Hudson. And then we have an occasional award that goes out to an individual that through a career has demonstrated staying power and economic development, and that went to Ruthie Johnston in Croix Gear and Machining. And through tragedy, she was able to triumph. Last point, 2 weeks ago, a few of us were in Madison for our annual legislative day. Small but mighty crew. Bob Fiedler, Supervisor Fiedler was part of that. We had numerous appointments. The day could not have gone any better. We used the theme this year in our booklet, think big, think bigger, think really big. And some of those topics were a little bit out there, but we think that there's maybe a seed planted, and we're happy to do this on behalf of business and industry. It's not the time now to talk about it, but Bob, maybe at the end of the meeting, you want to provide your reflections. I thank you for your time and interest.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public that wishes to make a comment? Anybody else in the public that wishes to make a comment? Seeing none at this time, we'll close public comment. Move on. Consent agenda is listed. Can I have a motion to adopt? By Osnes, and a second?
Second.
By Supervisor Ard. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Ackerath?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to vote for it, but I guess one of the things that I think of is that,
Consent agenda, you have to pull an
Yeah, you'd have to separate it out.
Okay, alterations of district lines due to annexations. Oh,
You would
I
like
think-
to pull that
Oh, no,
out?
rezonings. I believe it was. it was on page 23. I guess one of my,
Yeah, there's no discussion unless you want to make a
Okay.
motion to pull it out of the consent agenda.
oh, then forget it.
Sure can.
Yeah,
All right. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, what are you going to do, roll call or just aye? Yeah, all those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries. All right. Let's see, where are we? Consent agenda. Presentations or recognitions. Northwood's Technical College report. John Will.
Good afternoon, and thanks to all of you for having me tonight. I'm looking forward to talking to you. I gotta get a little bit of instruction here. Let's see. That one's. Oh, I know how to do this too.
No, that's okay.
Thank you very much. And so my name is John Will. I'm the president of Northwood Technical College, and I've been in that role for about 8 years. And I do make it around to all of the county boards periodically, but it's been a couple of years since I've been here. So I'm trying to get that circuit kind of going again. And I'm just going to give you some general updates tonight and then hopefully offer an opportunity to ask a few questions. The numbers, when I get to those, I'm not going to talk about a lot of numbers, but they're going to represent information that is for our entire technical college district. And so the map that you can see in this presentation shows the 16 technical colleges in Wisconsin, and we are in the white area. That's Northwood Technical Colleges District. And of course, we have a campus right here in St. Croix County in Richmond. And then also campuses in Rice Lake, Superior, and Ashland, outreach centers in Hayward, Ladysmith, and Balsam Lake. And then I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail about the Shell Lake Health Education Center. You might remember that as a central administrative building for our college, but a couple of years ago we decided to close it as an administrative building. And I was just there today, actually, and we've converted it into a simulation clinical site. And so in the fall, we'll be starting to utilize that, and all of our health sciences students will be doing some of their clinical work out of that site in Shell Lake. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in just a little bit. I do want to mention our Tech College District has all or some of 11 counties in it. And St. Croix County has a special place in our Tech College District. It's the largest county by population. And so some of you may know that the board chairs for the counties choose our board of trustees. And as the largest population center or county with the largest population, the St. Croix County chair also serves as the chair of the board appointment committee. And so that's actually happening next week. And we will review our trustees and hopefully appoint 3 new trustees. In our college, we have more than 100 programs that fall into 3 general categories: associate degree, technical diploma, and certificate programs. And then we have a lot of programming that's non-credit programming that doesn't fall into any one of those categories. An example would be training firefighters. And we do that. We work with over 100 volunteer firefighters, volunteer firefighter. Why can't I think of the word for that? Volunteer. We work with more than 100 volunteer fire departments. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry, it's been a long day. Maybe I'm thinking too much about the nice weather and the maple syrup and the mud. I don't know why that slipped me. But we do a lot of other kinds of programs. Law enforcement training would be another example of that kind of programming, or avocational programming in various communities. I think it's important, and this is something that we're going to be working on in the next few years for people in our area with the workforce shortage issues that we all are well aware of, to understand that Our college is nationally ranked. There's about 800 two-year colleges in the country, and we're regularly ranked in the upper tier. The most recent one was a top 150 ranking by the Aspen Institute, but we've gotten multiple rankings in the top 50 or top 25. And some of the criteria they use in those rankings, we don't pick the criteria. And I shouldn't say that this is just our college and our system in Wisconsin. We have an emphasis on vocational education that connects to careers. And our most recent cohort, which would have been about a year ago, last May's graduates, had a 95% placement rate, which we thought was pretty good in the midst of a challenging situation. That was actually a little bit higher than the year before, but pretty typical overall in our system. And the average starting pay was just over $43,000. That's actually a little bit lower than it was the year before. And so we did have a little bit of a dip in average earnings. Some of that was due to some of the survey response information. I'll touch on that in just a second. The inflation rate was referenced a couple times tonight, and based on what we're hearing from graduates from our from recent graduates, I would expect that number will go up for the current cohort, the group that will graduate this May. Which is good news for graduates, but that's an issue, of course, for employers. So there's kind of a double-edged sword to that issue. When you look at average compensation by degree type, historically, the longer you go to school, the more money you make, but it might jump out at you on this one that short-term technical diplomas are actually have a higher average pay rate than one-year technical diplomas. And the reason for that is we started a truck driving program. I hope you've seen our trucks driving around. But we started a truck driving program a few years ago. That's only a 10-week program, so it falls into that less than 1 year category. And we're running that throughout the district, and that has a pretty good wage rate attached to it. In this visual, and based on our survey data, truck driving was actually the second highest paying program to nursing. Nursing is a 2-year associate degree program. Welding is a 1-year technical diploma. Accounting is a 2-year associate degree program. And HVAC, which is only offered in Superior, is a 2-year technical diploma. So all those program categories are represented up here, which is kind of interesting. What's not represented up here, we have a couple of programs that are only at our New Richmond campus, automated packaging and automated industrial controls. And the sample size of graduates was too small to include in this information, but those typically have pay rates above $60,000 as well. So some graduates doing very, very well. And then I love this slide because, as you can probably tell, we survey our graduates to find out how they're doing. That's really important in our system again. And after they graduate, occasionally, we don't do this for every cohort, but every few years we graduate or survey the graduates who graduated 5 years ago, and it's pretty typical for about a 50% increase in annual compensation for our graduates. So they not only get pretty good jobs when they graduate, but they continue to do well later on. We don't necessarily do that by ourselves. We have great partnerships with universities. And so a lot of our graduates, nursing is an example that I think a lot of people identify with. A lot of our 2-year nursing degree graduates get past the RN exam, and then they go on and get 4-year degrees or master's degrees, and they continue to sort of climb the career ladder as they go. Another example that I would point out that is really a neat one, I should have had probably more information on this. I thought of it when I was driving over here. Our veterinary technician program is a relatively new program, and we partnered with UW River Falls on that program, and that program actually has reverse articulation, so a student can start their first 2 years at our college and finish at River Falls in animal sciences, or they can start at River Falls and finish at Northwood Tech. And then River Falls also has set aside some dorm slots for our students. So really nice partnership with UW River Falls, and a good example of cooperation among higher education institutions. We try to make that go sort of the other direction too. There's been a lot of work over the last decade with high schools. When we identify a teacher who could be credentialed to teach college level courses, we essentially hand over our curriculum to them, and assign a mentor. And then they teach our curriculum to high school students who then can get credit both in at the high school, and we award credit and they get a transcript from Northwood Tech. If you added up the tuition rate that we charge for all of those students and all of those credits, it would come up to just under $700,000. This actually is down too. It was about $1 million, I believe, the last time I was here, but it's been affected by the pandemic as our K-12 schools have had a lot going on and changing staff. And we've had a lot going on too, so I'm not in no way intended to point a finger at anybody. It's just been more difficult in those cooperative situations to keep everything on the tracks. This slide I'm gonna probably pull out soon, but I still am getting questions about how the pandemic has impacted the college over the last couple of years, so you might be the last folks to see this. It's information as of January 5th. I picked that date because that's our first term, and so this shows about half of the year. And the most important two columns on this, I am going to abbreviate it a little bit, are the last two. And what they tell you is that we had, among all of our campuses, 76 positive exposures. So those are instances where we knew we had COVID on campus. And kind of connected to that, we had 333 to quarantine or isolate as a result of that activity. We have about 3,500 students that we expect to be on campus on a regular basis, since that's a little less than 1 in 10. Some people think that's a lot of disruption, and some people think, hey, that's not as bad as maybe I would have guessed. What I've been telling people, it was disruptive for people who were affected for sure, but it was manageable. And so we didn't have, we had a couple of programs that had to go remote for a while. We had that happen 5 times among all the campuses, but for the most part, we were able to keep things rolling pretty smoothly this year. The only other thing I would add to this one is, if you look at this term, the numbers have about doubled, but now they're almost 0. And so we had that, the start of the term was fairly rough, but it rapidly improved, the situation rapidly improved. Enrollment questions, this isn't necessarily a slide that's intended to talk about COVID, but you can't ignore that we had a drop-off in enrollment during these last couple of COVID years. And we measure enrollment a couple different ways, actually a lot of different ways. The two that I have up here are head count, and so that's the number of unduplicated people who access services at our college. You can see that drop to just under 15,000. And again, this is for the whole college district. Just under 15,000 in FY21, which would be June 30th of 2021. This year we're projecting to be over 15,000 by a little bit, so some recovery in headcount this year. Full-time equivalence is the exact same information, but you add up all the instructional hours and divide by 30. 30 instructional hours equate to a full-time credit load for a student attending a university or a college. And so full-time equivalence is a way to compare kind of college to college. And if you look at that, you'll see that hasn't been affected as much as the headcount numbers. And the reason for that is a lot of our very short-term programming, like seminars and workshops, was in person, and a lot of that went away. We brought some of it back, but we haven't been able to bring all of it back. And an easy example would be we've run programming, for example, in some nursing homes, and those aren't places where we can run programming still. And so we have some situations where either it's difficult to rebuild the services and it'll take a little bit of time, or we still aren't in a situation where it's the best decision for us to go into those environments. And I hope you've seen at least this top visual, the Northwood Tech Experience Success one. We've been working on a rebranding project. We're kind of on the downhill phase of that now. But we've been working to get all of our Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College branding changed out with the Northwood Tech stuff. And so the top one represents the new logo And hopefully you've seen it on billboards or trucks driving around, or if you go by our campus in Richmond, maybe on our signs. Our staff has done a great job of getting, you know, if you can imagine all of the signage we have throughout this 11-county area, they've done a really great job of getting it changed over. The bottom two visuals, the one on the left is Blaze the Bear, and that is our new college mascot. He got rolled out on Monday to our board. I get the question, are you going to have sports? And the answer is no, we're not looking at competing with any universities in athletics, but we have a lot of students who achieve really great things academically. We just had a group of apprenticeship students who were third in the state in an academic competition, and so that's how we're going to use our mascot, is we're going to be celebrating academic success for our students who compete in things like BPA or Skills USA. We've got a lot of great activity happening there, so that's going to be kind of fun for us to be able to do, and we're excited about that. And then on the right, you probably won't see that visual too much, but that is our official seal, so that goes on things like diplomas and transcripts. So that's what people will see when they graduate. I mentioned the Health Education Center, and this building, I'm very excited about this project. One thing that we learned over the last couple of years is that we can utilize simulation activities in our health sciences programs to a greater extent. The reason that's important is if you have a controlled setting, the ratio is about, you require students to spend about a third of the time to do the same activity they would have to do in an in-person clinical setting. And so our healthcare providers partner with us. We have over 200 partnerships with various healthcare providers in the region, and they take in our students voluntarily to help them complete their clinical requirements. So, but that's a lot of work on their part and our students' part. And so by using mannequins that are very lifelike and controllable by our faculty, we'll be able to reduce the amount of time that students have to spend in about half of their clinical work. So we're going to target about 45% of current clinical experiences to happen in this simulated clinical setting. So this building is completely devoted. It has hospital rooms in it, exam rooms, and students will go there, and they have mannequins. I like the joke I use is if you poke them, they say ouch, but it's not really a joke because they really can say ouch if you program them to do that. They have heart rate monitors, so if a student gives someone the wrong medication, they'll have a heart attack, but it's not a real person, so that's better than if it was in real life. So a really neat environment, research-based facility, and again, this was a central administrative building, and when we started using remote work arrangements, we realized that we didn't need to use this for administrative purposes anymore, and instead of building more buildings, we just repurposed this one, and it looks great, and it's going to be a great facility and serve our whole area really well. I could have been, again, when I was on my way over here, I thought about last time I was here, and to me, the vet tech program at our Enrichment campus seems like it's been around forever, but I realized that it hasn't been, and a lot of people don't know about that program, but we started that program just a couple of years ago. I had our first group of graduates last year. That's a very popular program with a huge wait list. Great facility. It's got a surgery room in it, an x-ray room in it. We have live animals on campus, which is kind of a treat when you go to campus now and see a dog running around inside the building. But that program also may be of interest. And again, we have great articulation with UW River Falls. They've been a really nice partner to have in getting that program up and off the ground. And then this slide, if it works, I'll click on it in just a second here. What we're going to be trying to do over the next few years, we're really trying to make people aware that they have a lot of great options if they start at our college. And we're trying to do that to keep people here, maybe draw people from the other side of the river over to this side of the river. And if you think about our Superior campus, same thing with Duluth. And so we're really trying to use that Northwood Tech, the tech part of it. If you've ever heard of Michigan Tech, that's a university in Upper Michigan, and they're very well known in a very rural area, and they've been able to leverage the idea that they provide really high-tech programming, and that's what we do. So we want to emphasize that. So this is an example of a commercial that you would see except that you probably wouldn't see it on your TV. It's sent out through Hulu and streaming services and social media. So if you're in the demographic that we're trying to target, you would see it, but otherwise you might not. So I thought I would, and that's kind of an unfortunate thing, so I thought I would just share it if it hopefully plays here. Oop, I don't have sound. Yeah, it's okay, just the visual will be good. Just trust me, it has really cool music too. Yeah, imagine, really cool. Whatever your favorite music is, imagine that. But you kind of get the idea. We do, sometimes like when we've done marketing and we've tried to explain who we are, we've really emphasized, we haven't emphasized the degree of technology that we use. And I think that's a mistake because so much of what we do now, like if you think of machining, machining is very automated. We're using programmable logic controllers in lots of different areas of our programming. Healthcare's got a lot of technology in it, and that's what we want to start to help people understand. Even a program like Auto, people think of that as sort of turning wrenches, but you're using diagnostic equipment. That has changed so much over the last decade, and we want people to understand that that's the kind of programming we have. So, every time I've done this, I've actually accidentally ran that commercial twice, so I'm going to see if I can not do it. There, I got through it. And so I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has them about the college.
Any questions at this time? Supervisor Arcroft?
Have you noticed it, is there a change in the ages of students that are taking advantage of these programs?
Not really. Our average age, I'll run through some information really quickly. About 65% of our students are female, about the same percentage as part-time, so a lot of part-time students, and the average age is 27. And it's been that way. I've worked at the college a total of 14 years now, and it's been that way ever since I can remember, 26, 27, or 28. And median age is more like 24, so it does skew a little bit towards students who are 1 or 2 or 3 years right out of high school. But no, usually a higher average age than people expect.
Does the economy, if it's booming, does that affect your enrollment because people want to be working, or how do you see the swings with that?
It does, and that's a really astute observation because a lot of people like intuitively think if the economy is good and there's all these jobs, then your enrollment should be up. But if you look at it historically, when the economy is good and unemployment is low, then our enrollments are low because we are competing not so much with other higher ed institutions, but with the labor market. And so for programs that don't, especially if they don't have a license, some kind of license associated with them, employers are desperate for workers, and so they're hiring them and training them in-house. Now, you don't see this in the numbers, but we do have contract training services, so we typically see that grow. So I don't think, Nikki O'Connell is our board member from Russ Davis. She works at Russ Davis, and they've utilized this to do contract training in a couple of different areas. And so that strategy, you start to see that come into play more. Instead of open enrolling in a program, we'll be training people at a company location.
Any other questions at this time? I don't see any. Any on the screen? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you. My business card is in there if anybody wants to reach out and get any additional information. I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on. Recognition of departing county board supervisors. I guess that's Mr. Witt.
I think Chair Peterson wanted to say just a couple of words, and then we do have some certificates of appreciation to hand out for those supervisors that we know are departing the county board.
Yeah, I would just like,
Nice way to put it.
I would just like to say thank you to all the supervisors that are not running again. And thank you so much for being great role models along with the other supervisors as to how a government board or entity should function, knowing that we can agree to disagree, but still having respect for others' opinions. And just because they disagree with us, they're not villains. So once again, and especially to Supervisor Peavy for serving as my vice chair. I know I'm a heavy load, Bill, but thank you so much for serving with me. And to the rest of you, thanks so much again. God bless.
Supervisor Schachner. Supervisor Ochterhoff. Supervisor Anderson. And Supervisor Peavy. And I'm assuming the rest of you will be back then.
All right, County Administrator's report.
All right, so in the packets, we have the January financial report. It's just 1 month into the new year. I can report everyone is still under budget for the year. There's my accounting joke. You know, it doesn't get much of a laugh at any of the committee meetings, but if you had any specific questions on the financial report, there's not much data right now to look at for the year, but so far, so good.
Any questions for Mr. Witt? All right, we'll move on to business items. Want to remind everybody that we need a motion and a second before we can start any discussion on a business item. So first one, the initial resolution authorizing the issuance of $80,000 general, or $80 million, general obligation government center building bond, series 2022A. Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve the bonding issue.
We have a motion by Supervisor Ard. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Yeah, we'll use Paulette as she gets her name in the record, so Supervisor Anderson. Ken, you want to?
Yeah, we brought this back, and Adam's going to give a short presentation right now. We brought this back, though, based upon the vote last month and the input that we received about what the issues were potentially with it. So hopefully we repackage this into a proposal that you find acceptable. And Adam's going to go over the project just in a little bit of detail so everyone understands where we're at right now with it.
All right, well, thank you for having me, Board Supervisors. I'm going to give a brief update on the Government Center expansion update and where we left off, and then I'll hand it off to Sean Lentz from Ellers, and he'll go over the specifics with the numbers. So, as you may know, we are the second fastest growing county in Wisconsin. The building that we're in right now was built in 1993 when the population was around 50,000. Fast forward to today, and our population has nearly doubled. We do have a projection that says in 2040, the population will be just over 119,000. So as more people make St. Croix County their home, there will be an increased need for services from the county and an increased need for space to provide those services. We have a specific need for more space, specifically within our public protection and our court services, and then we'll go over that later with some of the updated floor plans. So what has changed since the last time that we had talked? We took the feedback from the February County Board meeting and made some modifications to the project to address the concerns expressed during that meeting. Some of the concerns expressed were the cost and that we were allocating space for the Hudson Police Department without a guarantee that they were going to move into that new space and cover the cost of the building. To address these concerns, we removed the allocated space for the Hudson Police Department and scaled back the footprint of the new addition. We also removed the financing, and those those changes will result in a savings of over $10 million for this project. So here are some exterior renderings of the expansion. You've probably seen these in our other presentations and on the website. It's important to note that the work that's been done so far has really been to determine the space needs and the budget. If approved, we will begin the design phase of the project, and there will be more opportunity for input from all of you and from our employees. So getting into the specifics of the updated floor plans, again, this is just exercise for space needs, so the specific location of the departments or the different rooms may change, but we just needed to do this exercise so we could determine that budget and how much space we need. The area down here where it says TBD, that kind of tan color, that was the area that was previously allocated for the Hudson Police Department. We put that as TBD. We didn't redo the whole drawing of the floor plan, but we're going to take that space into consideration to make sure that we're meeting the budget of $80 million. So within law enforcement, just a couple areas that I wanted to go over. Law enforcement, there would be an addition of a public lobby right here. There would be increased space for training rooms, evidence labs, interview rooms, increased storage space, and secure parking. For judicial services, we would see additional courtrooms. There would be space for children's waiting areas for the family court, dedicated jury deliberation rooms. A lot of times they do their jury deliberation or jury selection in this room, and we would just make sure that there's dedicated space for that. And then we would also have more space for our district attorney and victim witness offices. And if you looked at the images that we have on our website, the district attorney's office, they have some of the most limited space within the government center here. Going over to other government services, the departments will have larger areas to accommodate more employees and the services that they would be offering. We would also have more meeting space and collaboration space. And that's also going to include flex space, so we can bring services from New Richmond, like HHS services, from the ADRC, and from Bob's area over to meet the people within this area. So we're looking at using that space to create greater collaboration. I'm not going to get too deep into the numbers. That's what Sean is here for, but I did want to reiterate that the projected maximum budget is now $80 million. That's over $10 million lower than the last time that we had presented it to you. The interest rates, they still are at a low. They are going up. We do anticipate that they're going up. If we were to secure the funding now versus when the interest rates get much higher, because of the cost of the project, this would save the county tens of millions of dollars. I did want to point out that all of this information is online. When we started communicating about this project, we created this webpage. All of the information that I presented to you today is available on the website as well. And I threw in this slide, this is our updated vision and mission. I did want to highlight the fact that the government expansion is part of an action plan within the strategic plan, and the work done so far for this has been done in order to meet the vision and mission of the county. And I'm available to answer any other questions that you might have. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it off to Sean from Ellers.
Any questions? Sean?
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sean Lentz with Ellers, and what I'm going to talk about today is just the adjustment from a financial standpoint of the numbers that we discussed at the previous meeting down to the new budgeted amount of $80 million. Ken, if I can have you go to the first exhibit, if you would. Perfect, there we go. So Exhibit 1 for the board members is the new amortization schedule for the $80 million in general obligation government center building bonds. We'd used the same interest rates. We had a conservative projection of interest rates, about 0.5% or 50 basis points over current market conditions. But by reducing the issue from the 90+ million before down to 80 million, we're paying less in principal over the 20-year period and less in interest, having less principal be outstanding. So this would still be the plan for the financing, is a 20-year fixed rate financing, again with the strategy of trying to lock into very low historic rates right now, with an understanding that in all likelihood we are going to continue to see a trend that has started of rates going up. Ken, if you can go to the next exhibit. Just a second on this exhibit. As I've mentioned to the board before, the county is restricted in using this tool, general obligation borrowing, to 5% of the equalized value of the county. And that's the red line at the top of the chart that Ken is highlighting right now. The green bars below are existing debt of the county, as well as the proposed 80 million being included. So you can see, historically speaking, the county has used general obligation debt very conservatively, and you certainly, even with this potential large project moving forward, you still have a tremendous amount of borrowing capacity available to you should you ever need it. Now, the next couple exhibits I think are probably the most important and have been focused on a little bit in the previous presentation. What this exhibit is attempting to do is highlight the existing principal and interest payments that the county is currently making on your general obligation debt, and then the impact of adding the new proposed 80 million bond issue repaid over 20 years. So at the bottom of the chart, in purple and blue, that represents the existing payments. The purple represents historic payments on general obligation debt that the county made. 22 and forward in blue are existing commitments that the county has already made for projects that you have outstanding. And then on top of that, in green, is the proposed new financing being added on top of the existing financing. And with the proposed new debt, with the interest rates, which again are conservatively projected at this point, the total indebtedness is expected to go up to somewhere around 10.9 million in principal and interest payments starting in 2023. And then it's set up, and this is by design, in the future to gradually fall off. And it's with the idea that potentially, I know there's been talk of a potential phase 3 of other additional work, or there could be other projects that the county would have in the future that you would potentially need to use general obligation debt for. And this debt being sized up with this repayment provides an opportunity, should the county want to do that, to add that additional debt in the future. Okay. Ken, if we can go to the next exhibit. Now, Exhibit 4, we looked at this one before, but just as a reminder to the group, we did it from 2 points of view in terms of impact. One, in the green section, is a projection looking at the equalized value of the county staying exactly the same as it was this past year in terms of growth. So really no growth at all. And then the second perspective is looking at it from an assumption that the county's tax base grows by 5%. And Ken, please help me again, the average growth for St. Croix County?
Over 7%.
For over a 10-year period, I think it was? Yeah. So we think both are hopefully conservative, especially the no growth impact analysis. With the no growth impact analysis, and this is just looking at debt alone, not other expenditures or revenues of the county, just the debt alone, your mill rate for debt, equalized mill rate for this current year, levy 21, collect 22, was 0.47. With the new debt, proposed new debt, it goes to 0.90. And again, that's without any growth at all. And then how does that translate into different value properties within the county? That's just below that. In that section, we have impact range from a $100,000 property up to a $5 million property. If we were to look at a $200,000 property as an example, that's about an $86 impact from the project. The other chart, with the 5% growth, the mill rate, instead of going to 0.90, goes to 0.85. And again, on a $200,000 property with no growth, it was an $86 impact. With the 5% growth, it's a $77 impact. And just one other reminder of these numbers, this takes into account no other activity of the county. So depending on what you decide with some of the operational expenses and depending on ultimately where the growth is, that can impact the overall impact. This is the impact focused just on the debt side only. Okay? And Ken, if you could scroll down, the other chart that I thought was helpful, and we talked about this with county staff, I thought it was helpful, is looking at things historically for the county. What's on this chart is your equalized mill rate from 2013 through 2022. So the mill rate in 2013, and this was for all operations and debt, everything included, was $4.09 per $1,000 of equalized value, or 4.09 mill rate. This most recent year, the budget you finished in the year that we're in now, $3.11 per $1,000 of equalized value. Now, for just the sake of projection and impact analysis, if we were to add the no growth 43 cents on top of the $3.11 that you had in the most recent year, that would give you a mill rate next year of $3.54. And that mill rate would be for debt and all other operations of the county. Again, that's a no growth scenario, so we're not factoring any growth there. And certainly that is an increase when we look at it comparatively to the period from 2013 to the most recent mill rate, though it's very in line or lower than those historic mill rates that you've had over that period of time. And finally, thank you, Ken. The last chart we wanted to include for perspective on an interest rate standpoint for the county board. This is a common index, the bond buyer index, that's used to track governmental debt, and it looks at it over the last 30-year period. As you can see on the far right, we are at a very low point in the history of the bond buyer index, but as you'll also see toward the end of it, we're starting to see a trend upward. So we're near and around historic lows yet, but we'll see what the next year plus has in store for us with actions of the Fed and other activity in the market. I think if you poll economists, you're going to get a stronger feeling that rates are going upward than either staying the same or potentially going down. So Ken, anything you would choose to add to this?
No, I don't, Sean. Thank
Okay,
you.
Great. Any questions that I can be helpful with for the board?
Any questions for Sean at this time? I don't see any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We may call you back for something, but yep.
Sure.
All right, discussion. Who wants to start off? Supervisor
I'll start.
Ockoff?
I voted against this last time, but I'm probably voting for it this time because there's a difference of finance in a way, and it's the fact that we do need the space. There's no denying that. And if you can ever find a unanimous consent with 19 supervisors here that it is a good time to build, that's never going to happen. So, you know, I think we're getting the best bang for our bucks, and it's the most worthwhile. And I just hope that the county keeps a real open mind. There are some areas that need space more than others, but that doesn't make the other ones less worthwhile. And I think that every department has to be looked at with respect and consideration. But yeah, that's.
Other comments? Discussion? Anybody up on screen? Supervisor Ard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Whatever.
Our vision and mission statement say it all. And we are the board that crafted the vision and mission statement. To be the county that delivers service with compassion and respect for people and the environment. And in our mission statement, we will strengthen our social and economic future by providing health, safety, and well-being for all. We will never see these type of bonding rates again. Not in our lifetimes. As it has been said, we have an undetermined future that's happening in the world right now. There certainly is great uncertainty, which means that as elected leaders, we need to take a stand. We cannot be afraid. We have to look at this not only in an economic sense, but in a futuristic and a humanistic sense. As this county grows, more services will be desired. As the county grows, there will be greater demands on all departments, including the judiciary. Many of you have heard me speak previously regarding cases that have gone unadjudicated simply because of time and space and scheduling. And when that happens, then we have persons who are unable to secure employment, and worse, unable to secure housing because of a pending case. But when we look at St. Croix County as an overall, if we are not able to provide expanded services for a growing population, we will no longer be the second fastest growing county in the state. Because if we wait, it's going to be far more costly to build the space we need now and have needed for quite some time. We will not be able to service the persons who are residing in this beautiful county, and we will fail at upholding our vision and mission statement. There's a lot riding on this, and I'm asking all of you to think to the future as to what we truly, truly need and what we truly want to provide for our residents. If we sit on it, we're going to get caught without enough space, without enough services, and that's not what we should be doing. So I ask you to please support this bonding. Now is the time.
Supervisor Artino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take a minute to read into the record the email I sent to our Chairman Peterson, dated Friday, February 25th at 10:54 a.m. Mr. Chairman, due to the current conflict in the Ukraine, I respectfully request that we do not proceed forward with the government expansion project at this time. The cost is a burden to the taxpayers of St. Croix County, and there are many other options that could be pursued in the future at a much lower cost. Gasoline is expected to reach $4 a gallon by Memorial Day and possibly higher in the future. The price of oil per barrel broke $100 mark this morning, which was Friday. Home heating costs have almost doubled. Groceries have increased substantially, and the supply chain issues are still very, very real. There is also a threat of a cyber attack on our infrastructure in the United States. Thank you, Rick Otino. And then to add on to that, not too long ago, especially Supervisor Ard was really pushing for millions of dollars for park expansion because the low-income residents of our county depended on the park system. But as a homeowner, if you're renting your facility or you're renting an apartment and you're going to pay more in taxes, do you think that's not going to increase the rent and reduce the possibility of housing for our lower-income people? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other comments at this time? Oh, Bob Long, yep. Got to look up.
Thank you. I think you all kind of know where I stand on this, so I'm not going to reiterate a lot of my prior comments. I just wanted to kind of reemphasize the importance of context. I know that we're all concerned about short-term costs, inflation, the political situations around the world. I'm hoping that a lot of these will be short-term situations, and I can give you tons of examples of increased prices. I've been on the road for a couple of weeks, but I won't go there. There's lots of good examples. But the important thing is the context of this whole project is very, very long-term. We're talking about our ability to provide and continue to provide services to our citizens for another 30 plus years. And so we have to be thinking long-term. And then when you look at the impact of the tax increase, and as much as I hate to spend this money, nobody's really going to experience that until January of 2023 with their 2022 tax bill. So it will have really, what we do right now will have no impact on our current financial situation with regard to inflation and increased prices. So I just want to really reemphasize the long-term impact of this project and emphasize the fact that it really is needed. We really need to move ahead with this. Thank you.
Is there any other comments? Otherwise, I think we're ready for a vote. Which one? Supervisor Peterson. I see ya. I got to learn to look up.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Supervisor Long and Art said. You know, we went into this, we looked at all the figures. They don't lie. We needed this in our estimation, and we would not be doing a service to our constituents if we did freeze and just tell them, because it's not if, it's when we're going to need this and we're going to burst at the seams. So I fully support it. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? I don't want to cut anybody off. All right. If I understand this right from Supervisor Witt, since we are a board of 18 now with a vacant seat, doesn't count into 19. So we need 3/4 of 18 to approve. And Cindy, call the roll.
Ed Schockner,
Yes.
Sean Anderson,
Yes.
Bob Long,
Yes.
Kathy Leaf,
Yes.
Kara Cook,
Yes.
Tim Hall,
Yes.
Paul Burning,
No.
Rick Otino,
No.
Bob Fiedler,
Yes. Yes.
Dave Osnes,
Yes.
Scott Coner,
Yes.
Dan Hansen,
No.
Scotty Yard,
Yes.
Greg Telejohn,
Yes.
David Peterson,
Yes.
Paulette Anderson,
Yes.
Judy Achterhoff,
Yes.
Bill Peavy.
Yes.
3 on 15?
15 to 3, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for the great discussion. We'll move on to business item number 2, with resolution amending the budget. So we need a motion and a second.
I would move to amend the budget.
Supervisor Ard makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I would
Supervisor Osnes. Ken?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Peavy. So the budget amendment is necessary to move the capital project for this project from 2023 into 2022. We're moving the project into 2022 to get started. It'll be the design phase of the project. We anticipate this to be a 3-year-long project, a year of design, a year of the addition, a year of remodeling, and basically you have 3 years from the time that you borrow the money to spend the money. So in order to match those up, we're asking for this budget amendment at this point in time. This will require a 2/3 vote of the county board.
Is there any discussion? Cindy?
Ed Schachner,
Yes.
Sean Anderson,
Yes.
Bob Long,
Yes.
Kathy Leaf,
Yes.
Kara Cook,
Yes.
Tim Hall,
Yes.
Paul Burning,
No.
Rick Otino,
No.
Bob Fiedler,
Yes.
Dave Osnes,
Yes.
Scott Coner,
Yes.
Dan Hansen,
Yes.
Scotty Yard,
Yes.
Greg Telejohn,
Yeah, it's good, yes.
David Peterson,
Yes.
Paulette Anderson,
Yes.
Judy Achterhoff,
Yes.
and Bill Peavy.
Yes.
16-2.
All right, motion carries, thank you. Number 3, resolution.
I'll make the motion, excuse me.
In detail on the agenda, but go ahead.
Yes. So we establish elected officials' wages for the elected department head positions that we have. We have to establish those prior to nomination papers being circulated, so everyone has an idea of what the compensation is before they decide to take out papers or not. That process will start in April, I believe. So this is the meeting where we need to set that. How we established this was we took a look at our peer counties across the state and looked at where they were, and then adjusted ours to match where those were going. So we ended up with a 7.5% increase for the clerk of courts position, a 9% increase for the sheriff's position. One of the other contributing factors in the sheriff's, why his was probably a little bit higher, was internal comparables. Actually, the chief deputy is making more than the sheriff this year. Don't tell the sheriff that, though. And then the last 3 years of the 4-year terms, I have a 1.5% inflation factor built in to the wage scale.
Yeah, out of curiosity, how did this happen when we just have had the McGrath study? I mean, I assume they also looked at elected positions, so how did this happen?
Wage inflation. So we're seeing a lot of wage pressures. You actually have a lot more wage issues on the agenda tonight.
Yeah.
And it's because of market wage pressures that we're seeing. A lot of the vacancies that we're getting, just anecdotally, is that they're leaving to go make more money somewhere else. So because of the competition, it's driving up the price of labor. And so I think you're seeing that with these positions also. And it's just a matter of the comparables that we have across the state and trying to stay in line with the level of service and experience that we expect from these positions to compensate them at that level.
So how does this affect the budget, since it's going to be, I mean, what is the total? I mean, we haven't even gotten to all of them, but I don't know when to ask this question. When we do all of them,
Yep.
how much of an increase is that for at least the initial first year?
Yeah, so this would affect the 2023 budget before anything kicks in. So it's not a budget that's been reviewed or approved. You are committing these dollar amounts for the next 4 years, though. You're locking the county into these dollar amounts, which is what you're required to do by law. So that's normal. And the fiscal impact of these 2 wage increases, I could calculate the dollar amount for you specifically. It's 10,000-ish. But the impact on a $110 million budget is percentage-wise very, very small.
Yeah, but I'm
So-
looking at everybody, I mean, because there are more people that we have to do this, and if we add up all the, I mean, really have much choice if we want to get high-quality people,
Yeah.
which we do. But out of curiosity, how much is that going to cost us in 2000, estimated? I mean,
Yeah.
but, well, I said, I don't know when I can ask that.
Well, I think
I know, but if I can only ask each specific one, and when can I ask about what they all total, or am I not going to be able to do that? I have to do each individual?
well, I'll just tell you then.
Stay on point and just deal with these two at this time.
Yeah. So there are a number of agenda items tonight that all have individual cost line items. I did try to spell those line items out. If you add them all up, we're probably spending about $500,000 of future money tonight.
Thank you.
So now we're dealing with just the sheriff and clerk of courts. Any more discussion on those two positions as listed? Supervisor Hanson?
It did come out in the public protection meeting that the clerk's office has been unable at times to staff their window, and that's kind of when this came up. It's just, this is such an important thing to do. Somebody comes into the court and they have a question, they need to go to the clerk's office. If that staff is so short-staffed that they can't staff their window, member of the public
Yeah,
needs
that's
to come up.
under number 6. We're going to do just clerk staff under number 6.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. This is just.
Go ahead and say it. You might as well.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
I got your body language. So this is just a clerk, which is the elected position. So. Oh, it's good to keep me on point. I'm the sub tonight, so yeah. Keep me on point. Any other discussion on the clerk's position and the sheriff's position? Do we need a roll call on that or anything? Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Supervisor Counter.
So with this, I was looking over the charts that you had from the entire state, and how it looked like, if I understood the chart right, that then we're going to be sitting like within the top 5.
No, not the top 5, for sure. You know, we're out of the 72 counties, I forget exactly where we are. I think we're 17th, 19th. But I mean, we are one of the larger counties. And when I look at our comparables, I do look at those counties that are of comparable size and complexity. A lot of times with courts, I look at court sizes to look at our comparisons. And then I do look at our neighboring counties, but our neighboring counties are much smaller than us. So they carry a little bit less weight in looking at the complexity of the job that we're asking of these individuals. So not in the top 5, but we are in that you know, top 25% for sure.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Number 4, resolution amending wage grids. I need a motion to approve the wage grid. Supervisor Hanson, do I have a second? Supervisor Counter. Ken?
Yep. Thank you, Chair Peavy. The wage grid amendment here is would be effective on April 3rd this year. This was an unbudgeted item. Basically, what we started taking a look at is because of the turnover that I mentioned just a few minutes ago that we have, part of the reason is wage competition, wage pressures. So in order to stay competitive in the marketplace, we need to adjust our wage grid to keep competitive. So it's not about any individual employees, it's about the wage grid as a tool for the county to recruit and to retain the employees that we have. You heard some of the public comments earlier today about the cost of living increases that we've had, and their Social Security check went up by 6%, but our employees, because we started that budget process the summer of last year before we really knew the full impact of the CPI increases, we budgeted for a single step increase, which averages about 2% for the employees. So that's what the employees received this year. 2% increase in their wages, a 7% increase in their household expenses. So this doesn't close that gap, but it helps a little bit, and I think this is what's affordable for the county right now. I do think it should be a priority when we look at the 2023 budget, whatever we can do and wherever the CPI is projecting at that point in time, that we take another look at it. But I think this is a good step right now to keep us competitive.
Discussion? Anybody have any comments to make? I don't see any. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Number 5, resolution adjusting wages due to compression. Different side of the coin. Do I have a motion to approve the changes indicated due to compression? And they were listed. Supervisor Hall
I would move.
I'll second.
and Supervisor Long, was it? Second, all right? Peterson, all right? I can't get used to looking up at that little screen up there. Mr. Witt?
Okay, so compression. So I put in here the history, and you can see it on the screen there, when we've done some compression adjustments in the past. What happens is, one of two things happen for compression as we define it. One is that supervisors and the people they're supervising get too close, they're compressed, and we're not getting people that are applying for those supervisory positions. The application pools aren't very good, and what we've heard is that, well, why would I take on the extra responsibility to make 50 cents more an hour? And so because of that compression, we want to increase those supervisory personnel to create that gap. The other type of compression that we're seeing is when we hire new employees. You know, somebody leaves, they go for a different job, they retire, and we hire somebody new. That new person coming in is making the same or more than somebody that we already have on staff and have been here for a while. And so that's creating that internal compression of new hires to the existing staff. So what we did was we did a statistical analysis first to look at that compression by identifying the wages, years of service, supervisory to subordinate roles, identified all of that statistically. We then, HR sat down and looked at each individual case, because sometimes circumstances can vary. You might bring somebody in at a more competitive wage rate because they bring a lot of experience. So there's a good explanation, and that's not compression. Then they were brought in because of the experience they're bringing. And then what we did was we sat down with the department heads, had them review that to see if there were any anomalies or any individual circumstances that we weren't aware of that should be identified. Maybe somebody wasn't on the list, somebody was that shouldn't be. So we went through that vetting process to come up with this list. I have had lots of complaints from the employees about this list. Either they're not on it, they're on it with not enough steps, or whatever the reasons might be. Nothing's ever perfect. But this is the best list, and that's the process we came through to come up with this. So I believe we have 43 names that are on this list. Not names, but we use the employee number. And those are the compression adjustments that we had. And again, this one has a budget effect also that I projected at $113,000.
All right. Open it up for discussion. Any comments or questions?
Supervisor Peavy?
Go ahead.
I have a couple questions, Ken. So when you did that statistical analysis, did you vet this with the Employee Advisory Council? And if so, how much time did you give them to review? And I'm also thinking I would really like to see a future agenda item, and this I know will come later, of really looking at this grid and involving employees in the conversation.
Yep. To answer that question, so we did not take to staff advisory the details. We took the concept to them. We explained to them the process that we are looking at on the different compensation issues that are on tonight's agenda. And we reviewed that concept with them and had a good discussion about that. We didn't take individual employees, though, to an employee group and say, all right, Sally's going to get 2 steps
No,
extra.
I get that.
Yeah, right. So what we did is we did vet the concept. We didn't vet the details.
Another question is, you said you had a couple multiple.
Oh, no, I just think my next issue will be asking for a future agenda item to really take a look at this grid and involve our employees in the conversation, because I think, you know, Ken, you said it yourself, you're hearing from people, and it just, I think in some cases in this list, there may be some departments that are probably feeling a little like, you know, when there's one person in a department that gets moved and others don't, that it doesn't necessarily create a
Sure.
great environment for morale.
Yep, you can bring that up at future agenda items then, yep. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay? Motion carried. All right, number 6, resolution adjusting wages in clerk of court's office. Motion by Supervisor Hanson.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Fiedler. Ken?
Yeah, so this is a different type of compression, and that's why we put it into a separate resolution. So there wasn't new hires coming in that were coming in at or higher than the wages of the current employee. I think the clerk of courts, Christy Severson, has done a good job of making sure that she didn't do that. But she ended up with a different problem then, and that was she couldn't fill the positions because she would make a job offer, it wasn't high enough, the people would turn her down. So what we needed to do with this department in this situation is raise the existing employees to create that capacity at the lower end of the grid, so there was capacity to bring somebody in at a rate that they would accept and didn't create the compression issue. So different situation, different type of compression, and this is the result of that in the resolution before you, and this has a fiscal impact of $41,000 per year.
Discussion? Supervisor Hanson?
I'll just make this one fast because you heard the first part of this story. This is going to hopefully allow the department to function and staff all aspects of the department, including the window, because it's a critical part of the service offered up there, as well as serving the needs of the judges in the courtrooms. So, and Christie deserves a full staff.
Any other discussion, comments? Supervisor Hockoff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm for this, but what scares me, and I'm not going to be on the board to do any decisions, is that every year you have departments wanting more help. Well, if we keep upping the pay, which we need to, we're not going to have any money to do. It's going to be really difficult the next couple of years, and those of you who will be on the board are going to have to make some incredibly difficult decisions. So in that aspect, I'm glad I won't be here. But just, it's scary. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay? Motion carries. Since we're through the wage stuff, I think we will take a 5-minute break, then come back and finish up our agenda. So our next business item is the resolution updating the ARPA funding uses. Do I have a motion? Supervisor Cowner, do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Telejohn. Ken?
Yep. So this resolution is to allocate the ARPA dollars for federal reporting purposes. So we have to report quarterly how the dollars are being used, when they're spent, progress reports on it. When the final guidelines for the use of the ARPA dollars came out at the end of the year here, they changed one of the things that was really beneficial for us, and that was the lost revenue. So before there was a very complicated formula. You'd have to calculate it every year to determine lost revenue. Everyone hated that. So they said, well, you can still do that, or you can just say the first $10 million you get is lost revenue, and then you can spend it, you know, more freely on the other things without having any detailed reporting on that $10 million. So what we're changing here is all the projects that you've approved before, and then allocating the $10 million for lost revenue. So that doesn't spend the money. It's how we're going to report it to the federal government, though. That's what this resolution is doing. There'll still be $7.5 million of money that we haven't determined how it's going to be spent yet. But this resolution is just the allocation.
Supervisor Osnes.
Ken, is there going to be an end date on when we have to have that spent by?
Yes. The funds have to be committed by the end of 2024 and expensed by the end of 2026.
Any other questions, discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay. Motion carried. Number 8, resolution updating personnel policy. We need a motion.
I would move to approve the updating of the personnel policies.
Motion by Supervisor Ard. Do I have a second? Second by
I'll second.
Supervisor Long. Oh,
I was just going to be here for any questions. These are the last 4 of this project, and you have, to date, if these are approved, there have been 91 policies that you have reviewed and approved, so thank you. We are really excited to finish this project, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
any questions on any particular policy at this time?
I have a general comment.
Supervisor Long?
I just want to thank Tara and her staff for updating all these procedures and policies. I know there's a lot of time and effort and a lot of work that went into it, so thank you, Tara. We're really very appreciative of all your work on this.
Thank you.
Somebody else had their hand up. Supervisor Koner, was it? Nope.
Thank you. The only one I had, reviewing everything, the one question I had was on the definition that you had on the harassment definition.
Okay.
And I can see the improvements as to the new one to the old one. The only thing I seen though when you read into it is there a mechanism so that if somebody is coming in and talking, you know, I'll try to keep a little short scenario on this. So you have an employee that's been working hard on a project and working with peers and stuff, and all of a sudden they come in to a meeting and they do their presentation of the project, and their supervisor doesn't like what was done, and he has some reasons behind it, but that employee feels that he's been slighted in front of his peers and then feels that meets the harassment charge.
So a couple things on that. That one would probably fall better under concerns and complaints. The harassment one is defined pretty clearly by the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Commission, and that is based on typical protected classes. So I can read you the definition of the EEOC uses for harassment. It's unwelcome verbal or physical behavior that is based on race, color, religion, sex, including pregnancy, gender, gender identity, nationality, age 40 or older, physical or mental disability, or genetic information. So that's why that one only pertains to those areas. But the concerns and complaints policy would be where that person could go forward.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Supervisor Hanson?
So I read the one on bullying, and I'm wondering if there's any provision for anonymity. If somebody's feeling bullied and they feel threatened, how do you handle that?
Well, if they're feeling bullied, we ask them to go to their supervisor. If their supervisor is the person that they feel they're being bullied by, then they have a recourse of going to either Human Resources or their supervisor's supervisor. But we're always open for them to come talk to us if the person that's bullying them is someone that is in the reporting line and they don't feel comfortable going to that person. As far as being anonymous, that gets tricky. So sometimes people will come to us and want to make a complaint but say we don't say anything or do anything about it. That kind of ties our hands. So if it's something that's obviously illegal or egregious, we're going to have to do that anyways. But if they just want us to listen to them and not say anything, that makes it hard to do anything about it. So, but to your point, for bullying, yes, absolutely, they could come to us if the person that was bullying them or they felt was bullying them was in their chain of command. Yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Resolution amending rules and bylaws. We have a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Supervisor Long, do I have a second? I'll second. Second by Supervisor Burney. Ken? I don't know. Heather?
Yes, this resolution is amending the rules and bylaws. We do this once annually. The changes are pretty minimal this year. We are amending the section that details the districts in order to provide the updated information based on the census, and then we are just making some minor changes to make sure Robert's Rules of Order is reflected accurately, cited accurately throughout the rules and bylaws. So those are the basic changes. I believe there was a previous recommendation about reviewing staggered terms. That is not a proposed change in these rules and bylaws. That would have to come before the board on an ordinance if the board would like us to change staggered terms for the supervisors.
Supervisor Hall?
Real quick question. On page 132 of the agenda packet, the districts are enumerated in section E. And I'm looking at District 6, which I represent currently. Is this the previous division and it'll be replaced by the updated?
Correct. If you look at
24. Oh.
Packet page 124. Excuse me, packet
Okay.
page 124 has the corrected one.
Well, just bear with me, you know.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other? Yep. Supervisor Octoroff?
On page 124, what's the difference between the blue and the red?
I think that was one person corrected it in the blue, and then someone reviewed it and noticed something was missing and corrected it in the red.
Oh.
And I can confirm that because one was my paralegal and one was me.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none. Before I move on, the question of staggered terms came up at the admin committee and there was no action taken to move forward with that, so that's not in here, and that's why. So unless there's any other comments, we're going to vote on this as it is presented. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay? Motion carries. We pass the resolutions. Consideration of establishing county clerk vacancy process.
Yeah.
Mr. Witt?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So before you make a motion, I need to explain what you would be making the motion on. So this one's a little bit different. A vacancy of one of the, well, some of the elected positions are your jurisdiction to determine what you want to do. We did get a jump start on this. in order to save some time in the process, in order to get it before you in a timely fashion, and before the county clerk is retired, to have a replacement. So I put together a process for filling that vacancy. It's similar to the one that we used when the county treasurer had left back in 2016 or 17. The decision on this process, though, is up to the county board, so you can modify this if you like. And then the key that you have to identify it, I didn't identify it for you, is who your hiring committee is going to be. It can be the entire county board if all 19 of you want to sit in on the interviews, or you can designate a committee. I think the recommendation that I had given to the admin committee was maybe the county board or the standing committee chair people. You could have that group. We've used them before for similar type hirings. So that would be one recommendation I would have, but it's completely up to you. But that's the motion that we're looking for then, is approval of the process and identifying that committee.
Supervisor Hall?
I would so move.
Motion by Supervisor Hall. Let me summarize. So the process as?
The process as outlined.
As outlined, okay.
And then the hiring committee would be the standing committee chair people.
And, okay. Everybody clear on that?
There's a motion. I don't know if we have a second.
Yeah.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Hanson. Guess you had your hand. I caught it first. Doesn't matter. Yep. My only comment is the standing committee chair's last appointment I don't know about. That was Mr. Witt. All right. Sure. Supervisor Hanson.
Are we making a provision for a citizen member on this committee?
You'd have to make an amendment to that motion. I was kind of waiting for you.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion that we add a citizen member of the hiring committee, and that citizen member, we reach out to Jill Berkey and ask her to be a member of that committee.
We have a motion to amend. Do I have a second? Second by, who made the second? It's all hand and a voice.
Or Hall.
Supervisor Hall.
I'll second.
Okay. So the amendment would be to add a citizen member to the committee with the committee chairs. Okay. Supervisor Burney?
So then that would put us at 6?
Yep.
On the hiring committee? Sure you want to have 6?
You know, actually, it was last time, and maybe I didn't clarify this, it was the 5 standing committees, it was the county board chair.
Right.
And then the citizen would be 7. So.
Yep. And Cindy just clarified, and that would be your motion, be the standing committee chairs and the county board chair.
Yep.
And now the amendment would be to add a citizen member to that.
And I would justify, may I speak?
Supervisor Hanson?
Thank you, Chair.
So the original motion now includes
The county board chair.
County board chair.
county board chair?
Yep.
Or was that an amendment?
I think that was a point that was not clarified by me. So when I talked about the standing committee chairs, that we had used that before, it had included the county board chair. So you can interpret the motion any way you want, whether it included my omission or didn't include my omission. But we can be
Okay.
clear, if everyone's in agreement, that what we're talking about now then with this amendment would be 7 individuals on the hiring committee.
Right.
I'm going to defer to Heather. So how?
I understand Supervisor Burney's concern, because the original motion, I believe as stated, was the 5 standing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think on the spot how to correct that. I think we can do the amendment to the motion first, because the amendment to the motion was to add a citizen member, and then we're going to have to amend the main motion.
Okay.
So if you can vote on the amendment first.
Okay. So the amendment is to add a citizen member to the 5 committee chair committee.
I'd just like to assuage your concern about that. The committee, the way it stands, worked really well, and we were doing it in an operative fashion, partially by Zoom even, when we went to the process of hiring the administrator. And we had a citizen member. We had an outstanding citizen member. Mr. Tyler was a citizen member then. The person who I'm hoping we can get on board used to be the county clerk. and would be probably the most qualified person in the county for that role, who I've already asked if she's interested. So I'm laying that out so you understand what my logic is here. Yeah, yeah. So there you go. That's why I'm suggesting that. So please vote for it.
Okay, first thing we'll do is vote on the amendment to add a citizen committee.
There's a question by Chairman Peterson.
Oh,
Peterson.
Question.
yep, Supervisor Peterson?
Yeah, I just want to, maybe something to think about is, do we want to name that citizen member, or should we possibly have a poll of those available? So that's just a thought. I have no hard feelings either way. I just want to see fairness and everything. Thank you.
Yep. And I think the motion is just add a citizen committee, citizen member. We're not naming a name. Yeah.
Yeah, the way I read it, and we can play the tape back if we want to put it on instant replay, was to add a citizen member and to reach out to Jill Berkey.
Right.
Yep.
So
So
we're not-
we would add a citizen, I mean, we can check with Jill to see if she's interested, but if she's not, we would still seek another citizen member.
May I speak?
Supervisor Hall?
Yeah, I think just in interest of fairness, yeah, I think it should be whoever wishes to apply should be considered for the position. And hopefully, we have people in mind that we could reach out to, but I'm uncomfortable just pointing to some person.
Right. Yeah, I took the motion as to be just appoint a citizen member, and that's the end of it. Whatever happens for that member, they can reach out to us.
That's the motion, and the intention, I guess, is to let the administrator help find one.
Supervisor Ockoff?
Well, we're also under a time, I mean, if we're following this timeline, if we're going to put it out to the general public and then have a meeting about which of the general public's going to be on it, and then, I mean, this is getting, we're not going to be able to meet the timeline. And, if it's, I don't know. I think that, I don't know how you want to do it, but for those of you who want to open it up to the public, you're adding another couple days, if not longer.
All right. Any other discussion? So we're going to vote on the amendment, which is to add a citizen member to the group. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Now we're back to the county board chair. If we want to amend it to add the county board chair to the committee. Or not. Nobody. Nope. Okay, Supervisor
Second.
Hanson moved to add the county board chair. Supervisor Anderson seconded. Discussion on that. I think that was the original intent, was the county board chair to be involved, but is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Next agenda, an ordinance.
Don't we have to vote on the main
Oh, that's
motion
right,
now
yeah,
that
we
it's
gotta vote,
amended?
yep,
Yeah.
excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, I knew you'd keep me in line. We need to vote on the original motion as amended twice. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Now we have a procedure. All right. Next agenda item. I'm not going to read this. An ordinance repealing Chapter 17 of the, through the Community Development Department. I don't know who's doing that, Ellen or Brett or?
Or a motion first?
Oh, okay.
Make the
Motion
motion.
by Supervisor Hanson to adopt. Do I have a second? Supervisor Schachner? Who's gonna? Okay, Dan, you're gonna present?
Right, what
Good
this
deal.
is, we're repealing Chapter 17, Subchapter 4, and we're replacing it with Chapter 18, Floodplain Zoning of the St. Croix County Code of Ordinances. And it hasn't been rewritten since 2005, I believe. Brett Boudreau's done a tremendous job over the last couple years working on this project. It essentially is a rewrite of what the state DNR and FEMA requirements are. It does not exceed those requirements, and it's very careful to fall in line with what the state and federal guidelines are. There have been two very thorough presentations, in a public hearing at the Community Development Committee over the course of the last couple of months. This plan has been available at the county for review, for citizen review. We've had public comment available both online and in person. So it's been thoroughly presented and vetted, and if you'd like to read it, it's available to you as well. So there you have it.
Okay, any discussion? Nope, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay? Motion carries. Number 12, resolution of commitment and support for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation TAP grant, or Transportation Alternate Program grant, for construction of Highway 35 off-road trail, Phase 2. Motion by Supervisor Coner. Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Hall. Explanation?
Yeah. This is an exciting opportunity to extend the loop trail. It's the now I lost the screen. Okay, I'm going to do this from memory. This is the section of the loop trail extension that goes from North Hudson, right, brings it on down to Ellen.
The map's up. The map's up, Dan.
Okay, brings it down to, Ellen will tell us out. Right.
There's the map. You can pause. The county was awarded already, and we're working on having constructed the first phase 1, which is from North Hudson up to the new park, Eckerd Blufflands. Phase 2 is the blue piece, which is what this resolution would support, a grant application to extend that trail piece from Eckerd Blufflands to Willow River State Park. I'll keep it short and simple unless there's questions. There will be a phase 3 and possibly split into a phase 4. Any questions?
Yep, any questions for Ellen on commitment of support? Super Artino?
Do we have any cost to the county on this?
Yes, we do. It's identified in the resolution, if you go back to that. And the county's share would be, the grant would be 80%, the county's share would be 20%, and the amount, I want to say it was 100 and some thousand, it's in the whereas. There, $140,450. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay? Motion carries. We'll move on to department reports. Mr. Witt, you're number 1 here on the list.
Thank you. The county administrator's report is in the packet. It's mostly reviewing the goals and objectives that I do through the work plan, which we reviewed at the end of last summer or early fall. So it's information that you've seen before, but if you do have any questions on it, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Any questions first?
Well, this isn't really a question, but when we get the new board, there should be a special meeting maybe, or so that to explain to them what the strategic plan is, so that they understand where we're going and why we're going that way, because they don't know.
Yeah.
And it's an important, vital part, so that's something to keep aware of, please.
Yep, part of the planning process, Cindy and I were actually working on it today, is that orientation session for the new county board. We're looking at combining it with the organizational meeting, because the organizational meeting really consists of electing the chair and vice chair. So we'll stretch that out into, a half a day's worth of activity and maybe a lunch for the new board. But to go over all of those things and many more things that new elected officials need to learn.
Okay. Any other more questions for Ken? All right. Annual department report, human resources.
So my information is also in the report. There's just a couple things I wanted to mention. Thanks to you as of tonight, we did just complete the policy project, so thank you for that. And then we did have some new staff join the HR team. Last year was the first time in 4 years that we had turnover. We had a reduction in FTE by 0.75, and then we had 2 people voluntarily leave. We did hire 2 backfills for that, and I think they're doing wonderful, and I get a lot of positive feedback from the other employees, so I'm really excited to have them on the team. And then one other point I mentioned in the report is we're very excited to be going to Laserfish now for our personnel policies. I'm not sure if you are familiar with what that is, but it's like a software to store all of our documents, so we don't have to have hundreds and hundreds of papers in a file room. So we just started doing that conversion. Everyone in 2022 will have a Laserfish file, and then we'll be trying to load the rest of our employees, over the course of the next several months. So, other than that, any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Finance Department Annual Report, it's in your packet. Leah's not available, but Supervisor Witt can answer any questions you had from both the Finance Department. I don't see any questions. Corporate Counsel.
Yes, and since I'm last, I'll try to make it quick. My report is also in the County Board packet, the last 4 pages. I would just note that we did complete 12 termination of parental rights cases this last year, which allowed for 12 children to be adopted and have permanence, which is a great thing. Our cases for guardianships and protective placements continue to increase. Part of that is due to the aging population here in St. Croix County and people not having estate planning done or not understanding that they need the help that they need. So those cases will continue to increase. Our child support cases also will continue to increase. Looking forward to the future, we also need to fill the Assistant Corporation Counsel position that's vacant and a legal assistant position that's vacant. So those are top priorities. Hopefully we can do in the next 2 months. But that is about a summary of the highlights of the report from last year. So if you have any questions, I can take those at this time.
Any questions? Seeing none. Requests for future agenda items. And I think we had one earlier. Go ahead.
Yep, that was the one I was talking about with the grid, so I think we had that noted.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? County Clerk's report.
Do we also have announcements, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Yep.
Sir. Yep, I have nothing to report, so.
What's that?
I have nothing
Oh,
to report.
nothing from the, okay. Announcements. Bob? Supervisor Fiedler?
Mr. Chairman, I will try to be very quick, but following up on what Bill Rubin said in the public comments, I think he was asking if I could give a very quick announcement about what happened in our Economic Development Legislative Day down in Madison on the 16th of February. Just a little background for those of you who aren't familiar with it. Dave Osnes and Bob Long and I are the appointed members of the Economic Development Corporation representing the county board. Every year we go down on legislative days with a representative group of business people and county board reps from St. Croix County. I chair the legislative committee. This year we had Bill Rubin, myself, Angela Popenhagen was supposed to join us. She's our president. She had a medical emergency just before we left, could not join us. So Rob O'Keefe joined us, the former president. We had a wonderful set of meetings. We have 8 senators and assemblymen from that touch on St. Croix County. 3 senators, 5 representatives. State Senators Staffold, Smith, and Bewley, and Representatives Zimmerman, Magnifici, Moses, Petrick, and Armstrong. We met with all of them. They were all extraordinarily receptive and appreciative of our going down there. And we talked about a range of things that ranged from everything from use of the governor's use of ARPA funds, and we were suggesting it be used for workforce talent attraction. We suggested early childhood investment in childhood care and education, tuition reciprocity, transportation issues, and the big one, and I'm skipping about half a dozen things we also mentioned, but I wanted to show the spectrum of issues we talk about when we go down to meet with these people. It's not just hardcore business issues, it's far-reaching things. But the big one that we talked about was the possibility of eliminating the corporate and individual income tax. And there are 9 states that have done that in the United States. It is a wave that's coming. And with Illinois and Minnesota on our flanks with big high income tax rates, if we want to attract people, and we're losing people in Wisconsin, we need people. We need to sustain our people that are here, and we need to attract people and businesses. So our push was get rid of the income tax. There's a substantial number of the representatives and senators who really want to do that. I don't think it will happen anytime soon. I do think there'll be a big movement next year to modify it, and that, of course, will impact us. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one little announcement. I want to thank everybody for the well wishes when I was struggling with COVID, so I appreciated that. I just want to let everybody know that it was appreciated. 30 days in La Crosse was a long haul, so, and I was in La Crosse because there was no bed in this area, so, yep, I appreciate all your well wishes. Thank you. Yep. Any other announcements? All right, I rule us adjourned at 7:05. Thank you, everybody. Oh, Ken, we are going to have a meeting then?
Yeah, there's a committee of the whole on March 16th, but there'll also be a special county board meeting on April 4th at 5 p.m., and that'll be for the sale of the bonds and hopefully for appointment of a county clerk. So those are the 2 agenda items that we're anticipating for April 4th.
Will there be a Zoom option for that? I may be
Yes.
traveling.